Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of SEPA Paranormal Chronicles. My name's Lee. I am the host, and tonight I am delighted to have Maxim W. Furek. I hope I've said that correct. He's an author, researcher whose work spans psychology, addictions, music journalism, and paranormal culture. Max, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Lee, thank you so much, and good to see you, and thank you so much for the invite. This is great. I love all the memorabilia you have behind you. Boy, I can just there's a different story there in itself.
Oh, for sure. And like even behind this screen, there's more photographs, but I thought I better put something up to make it look less like a man cave and more like a studio.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, Maxim, I want to concentrate on the paranormal side of your lifestyle, even though you've got vast knowledge in, like I said, music journalism, psychology, and addictions. So, where did your interest about the paranormal first come about?
Yeah, a couple of things. I remember as a kid, just being so enthralled by comic books. I remember, as a young person going to the library, we actually had science fiction books. I remember just devouring them. So I always had an appetite for that. Wanted to know if there was life on other planets and if they were reptilian, insect-like, creatures and all that. And then the other thing, I think the real thing though was I'm a member of the baby boomer generation. We were born between 1946 to 1964, and we, and me in particular, was raised on things like Twilight Zone and Inner Sanctum and Thriller and One Step Beyond and all these wonderful TV productions, especially Twilight Zone, that took a look at all the aspects of horror and science fiction, whether it was demonology and all that. But it wasn't just science fiction and horror. It was Twilight Zone looked at political themes through the lens of the science fiction as a means to get around the censors. So it was interesting. You had a whole lot of things intertwined. So I read those comic books and I watched all those TV programs, but I think that with me, I got more of a high from that. And let me say this too, if I could just piggyback on this for 1 second without being totally long-winded. I was a former drug and alcohol counselor. One theory they had about alcoholism was that alcoholics developed a thing called THIQ, tetrahydroisoquinoline, and that it was a narcotic. So when alcoholics drank, they developed this narcotic substance, which was a fantastic way to drink. A reason to drink. Moderate drinkers don't develop THIQ, so you could understand that. So I think that the analogy then is this: that I think that science fiction and horror and the supernatural just was my THIQ. It spoke to me. It was my bell ringer. It was something that I really enjoyed doing to this day. I'm just fascinated by concepts of the paranormal and the supernatural, and that's me. That's my story.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned about science fiction, because I'm a big old-fashioned science fiction fan. So we mentioned before we came on air about all my collection, but down on the second shelf, I've got H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds and The Time Machine, and I absolutely love the concept of those early science fiction movies, The Man That Fell to Earth, and stuff like that, because it really opened your mind of the possibilities of what could be out there.
Exactly. And if you want to give credit where credit's due, it's not so much to the scientific community, but it's more, I would think, to the literary community. H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, William S. Burroughs, not William S. Burroughs, but the guy that wrote the Tarzan and John Carter of Mars. So many of those folks gave us that vision. and they opened up our eyes and expanded our vision. And it's and even today, I mean, the concept of flying saucers, the concept of Bigfoot and cryptids is given to us for the most part, not by the scientists, but by literary people that write about it and define it for us.
That's it. And even in the last few months even last week with these files that are getting released, 20 or 30 years ago, if you said that you saw a flying saucer or that you saw a cryptid or that you saw a ghost, you would have been kind of like, okay, sir, here's a straight jacket. What size will fit you kind of thing. But nowadays, it's almost like modern culture that everybody's speaking about it.
Right. It's a couple things. Some of it's like pareidolia, the drone hysteria of 2024. Everybody was looking up into the sky and seeing a drone. And it's just the way the human psyche works. We need balance, homeostasis. You look at something, you look at a cloud formation, and you will find something there. That's what we do. That's one of our greatest abilities. So, as kids, we used to love to look at the clouds and describe what we saw. But I just think that the part of the thing is the fascination for what's out there, trying to understand it. And the thing of it is, beyond that pareidolia, beyond the hallucinations and the some of the stuff that we could explain psychologically, there is reality and truth. And and I'm an example of that because I am a Vietnam veteran. I served during Vietnam on a U.S. On an aircraft carrier called the USS Constellation. As a radarman, I saw UFOs constantly, and we would mark them in the books as UFOs. And when I say UFOs, what are we talking about? We're talking about solid, tangible, maneuverable contacts, more maneuverable than any guided missiles we have or had or the Soviets had. Again, even today, the things that they're seeing are so fast, it's beyond anything that we have. And the most recent that I've heard of was over Louisiana. There's an Air Force base over Louisiana. It was being stalked by drones, and our military was not able to go and lock onto those drones and bring them down. They were pretty sophisticated, and we don't know where they're coming from. So we got the big question mark in 2025 about, at Louisiana. We had the same thing over New Jersey with the drone hysteria of 2024. And going back to 2023, we had a ton of Chinese weather balloons as big as buses going over Canada and the United States, that to this day, there has never been a sufficient explanation for what they were and what the end result was. So again, a lot of us are just waiting, with bated breath to hear what's going on. And a proper, legitimate government will not only protect us, but they'll also give us the truth. And I contend that we are not getting the truth.
Yeah, I think that is a bone of contention right now. That they're giving you a little bit, and then they'll take some back, and then they'll give you a little bit more, and take a little bit more back. Like I say, in this day and age, I think that people are level-headed enough. If you say we are not alone and we can prove it, people are going to go, "Cool, show me."
I think so. Yeah. I mean, And I think that with the world being comprised of what? Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and Muslims, we all believe in a higher power and a supreme being who has the ability to create other life forms. So, I think we're all good with that. So, I don't think anybody's going to really, maybe the agnostics and the atheists might freak out, but I don't think the rest of us.
Yeah. I can remember the first time that I saw the SpaceX Skytrain.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a friend's house, and he lives out in the sticks, and we saw it, and there was him and his wife, me and my wife, and we were just like, that is so cool. But if you're not familiar with the space race as it is now, and you saw that, your first reaction would go, I think that might be a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
But of course it's not, because we know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
but there is so much out there that everybody that has a sighting or everybody that sees something, they can't all be hallucinating. They can't all be like dreaming about it. There has to be something because it's coming far too common.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's sort of like even like Bigfoot sightings. You have numerous people that are saying these cryptids that they call Bigfoot. They hear the sounds. They smell this horrible smell of rotten eggs and wet dog. They see the structures. They hear the wood knocks. I mean, just a whole lot of things. You know what J. Allen Hynek called high strangeness, and he was talking about these elements of high strangeness surrounding UFOs. But I contend you could also do the same thing with flying saucers or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. I still call them flying saucers, but but I mean, there's just a whole list of things, of commonalities that people see with not only Bigfoot sightings, but also with flying saucer sightings. So yeah, I think that there's something there. Again, we don't have anything to appease the scientific community. We don't have that with Bigfoot. We don't have the carcass or the DNA. With the flying saucers, we don't have the crashed vehicles, and we're waiting. So I don't know. I mean, I followed the 20 I think it was the 2023 July 2023 congressional UFO hearings with David Grush.
Yeah,
2024, I think it was in September. 2025, it was in November. In all three cases, all we came away with was that these people believe the government knows something and isn't telling us. The government isn't being transparent. That's it. No great reveal, just a big tease. And I feel like I'm getting sucker punched because every time they have these congressional hearings, I'm the first one there watching this and taking notes. They give us nothing because I don't think they know anything. And I think that any government officials who belong to a black ops organization that is beyond the FBI and CIA, they're the ones who know about this. The rest of us, however, do not have a need to know. And this information is available on a need to know basis only. So
that's it. And you mentioned the 2024 incidents and such like, and what, like you just said, what have they revealed? They revealed that they don't know as much as what we think they do, but they've also released footage of what professionals have seen, like the Tic-Tac video, for example. Yeah. So not just Joe Soap who's walking down the street. These guys are credible witnesses. Military professionals and such like. And I think that's helping people understand more. But there's still a lot behind that curtain that they haven't shown us yet.
Yeah, and you're correct, because that Tic-Tac video from 2004 off the Nimitz, taken by Navy pilots, I mean, that's one of the best pieces of evidence that we've ever seen. Again, just like when I was in the Navy, it was a craft that would zigzag fast. It had, with G forces so tremendous that a human couldn't withstand it. So it had to be guided by some other intelligence. And then it hovered, then it went under the water. So, for what was called UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, I believe they started to call it UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So they keep on playing around with the words and everything. And I mean, there's a whole lot of trickery here. And I think we're being, if I could use the scientific word, we are being bamboozled.
I love that word, and we should use that more often.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, with 2023 in July, David Grush was the one who testified that he knew where the bodies were and he knew where the crashed vehicles were. This is in 2023. And he would go and give that information to the right people, classified information to the right people under the right circumstances. So where's the big reveal? I mean, this was in July of 2023. We've had plenty of time for him to go and tell us what he knows. But again, I'm suspicious. about these people like Grush and like Luis Elizondo, who claim that they know things. I think that they worked for government ops, secret government defense ops, but I think they knew a little bit about it, but just a little. And I think Luis was the one who helped get us that video, though, with the Nimitz. I think that he
Yeah.
did.
And you mentioned David Grush, and we have a commercial advertising some UFO show, and he gets asked the question, words to the effect of, are we alone? Or, what's that? And I can't answer that question. Dude, you've just answered it by not answering it.
Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
would you say that the UFO environment is your favorite go-to compared to cryptids and ghosts and hauntings and that sort of thing?
No, I think it's. I know it's demonology, and I've written books about Bigfoot. I've written books about flying saucers, but demonology, is the thing that really gets me excited. I mean, I'm just so curious. As a former altar boy, as a current, I would call myself a Catholic Buddhist. I believe that there's an afterlife, and I think most religions and mythologies believe that there's an afterlife where there are ghosts and spirits and demons that can either contact us or we could contact them. And no matter what they say officially, officially or unofficially, all of these religions have some type of belief in that. So,
Yeah.
I'm working on a book now. I'm finishing up my book, The Scream of the Haunted House. And, we're going to be talking about some of this, but I'm really excited. I don't know if I could just give a little preview to your.
Absolutely, you can.
I don't know if you could see that. There's The Scream of the
Yeah.
Haunted House, the Ghost Hunter's Bible.
Oh,
And I hope this, because I used the picture of the scream.
yeah.
And, so anyway, we'll see where this goes. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really popular book because I think I've done a lot of research and I'm excited about it. It'll be published by Hanger One. They do the Monster Quest series.
And I will buy one as soon as it comes out.
All right.
I'll make sure. And it's interesting that you said that you've done a lot of research, because when I first started doing this with the guys I'm with now, I thought to myself, if I'm going to go into locations and people ask me questions, I'm not going to walk in there and I can't answer any of their questions. So I made sure that I did online courses about ghost and hauntings, poltergeists.
Yeah.
I even did an introduction into demonology and cryptozoology. So at least I had a basic understanding of what I was talking about, and I didn't just go, well, I don't know. Yeah, at least I could go down the correct path to describe what was happening at that particular time, and help that individual understand from their perspective what was going on.
Yeah. Well, there's been some people, like I think J. Allen Hynek, for the most part, with the close encounters of the first, second, and third kind, with Stephen, what's his name, with the I think the fifth, close encounters of the fifth kind.
Spielberg.
What's his name?
Spielberg?
No, not Spielberg. Stephen Greer.
Okay.
That I think it's the fifth kind, where we could get together and do like a kumbaya and evoke the spirit of the alien. But I mean, he's like a new ager. He's like a space brother, with that. But J. Allen Hynek with High Strangeness. So Hynek's giving us vocabulary, and I think that's what we need. We need more terminology to define, because we're dealing with the unknown. So I think that's one of the things that we do as paranormal researchers. And with the world of demonology, I think it's important to be able to talk about ghosts as opposed to spirits and know the difference. And and it's my understanding, and correct me, I know that you're probably more deeper into this than me, but a ghost is sort of an earthbound person who is stuck for whatever reason. And spirit has a higher vibration and can pass over to the other side and then come back. So, and then demons, of course, have the power and authority to go and manipulate both ghosts and spirits, say within a haunted house, and so that's pretty much what we're talking about. But I know a lot of people use the term ghost and spirits interchangeably, and it drives me crazy because it's not the truth. It's
Yeah,
apples and oranges. They're two
that's
different
it.
things.
That's it. And yeah, when I was doing my demonology course, I was absolutely like over the moon, so to speak. I can't remember what the exact word that I want right now. But we had a demonologist, we had an exorcist, and they were telling us about the protocol of doing an exorcism. It's not straightforward, and the telltale signs of the differences between a haunting and a possession, and they were breaking it all down. Like speaking a foreign tongue or manipulating your
Oh, yeah.
body into something that you wouldn't normally be able to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was absolutely fascinated with that course, and it's like it was I would do it again in a
Yeah.
heartbeat because I
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. I'm getting a vicarious thrill just hearing about that.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you but when you look at all of the information provided by either Catholic priests or even Protestant priests that have done exorcisms, people that are possessed seem to have common traits: superhuman strength. They speak in foreign languages that they have no way to reasonably understand or be able to converse in. Sometimes they levitate. They seem to have the power of knowing your deep thoughts. If you're in the room with them, they know about you.
yeah.
And just a lot of things that just are just beyond the pale. So and again, with the exorcisms, the Catholic Church has to root out people that are mentally ill. And Father Amorth, who was the Vatican's exorcist, he said that only 2% of the people that he deals with are actually possessed by demons. 2%. All the rest are mentally ill. It's either schizophrenia or Tourette's syndrome or some type of, bipolar or whatever, some kind of other illness. So, but 2% of the people that they deal with are actually possessed. And,
Yeah,
and and the church has to make sure they work in conjunction with psychiatrists and psychologists to try
that's
to
it.
figure.
And yeah, I've actually got a medical background. I was a paramedic for 13 years. So we have a basic understanding of the mental health issues, schizophrenia, and all those kind of related issues. So when they were talking about the differences on that course, I could relate to it so easily because
Yeah,
I've experienced not experienced, but I've seen
saying it, yeah,
people suffering from those conditions. And I found it really interesting to know that when the Catholic Church recruited some priests that wanted to become exorcists, the first thing they taught them was mental health issues. So it's interesting that they go to the mental health
right.
route first before they go into the deeper, darker stuff.
Right. Well, that got the church into trouble over in Germany with trying to think of the young woman's name. She was 23. She was a college student, Annelise.
Oh yeah,
And
Annelise Michel. Yeah,
yes. And she thought she was possessed by demons, and her parents believed that, and the two priests believed that. But they had a trial, and they found the parents and the priests guilty of her death.
yeah,
And it was a very horrific exorcism where I think she was basically starved to death, and she wasn't possessed by demons. She was mentally ill, and they found that out after the fact. But because of that case, they no longer are allowed to do exorcisms in Germany. Now, again, above, legally, formally. Maybe they do
yeah,
them under the table. Who knows? But that was the case. But I mean, I think it was a cautionary tale for all of us to be careful even I know there's a lot of people out there that attempt exorcisms, and again, you do them by invoking the name of Jesus, and you do it through his power. Those are the two things,
Yeah,
so I mean, a lot of, and a lot of these amateur exorcists, they'll use the holy water and the crucifix and all that, and but they, be careful of what you're dealing with, you know.
yeah, and yeah, going back to Annelise Michel, I think she was exercised something like 67 times. And then, like you just mentioned, her family and the clergy were charged with negligent homicide because, like you say, she was mentally ill and starved. And it's like absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, in kind of the modern world, even though it was in the 70s, still modern ish compared to
yeah.
yeah, the 1800s and such like. But yeah, but that look, we actually studied that case on the course as well. So yeah, I love talking about that because it's a perfect example of what not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And culturally, with the whole world, we had, let's see, Rosemary's Baby, I think around 1960, 69. Then we had The Exorcist, and then we had The Omen. And there was a hunger for the demonic. I mean, people loved this stuff. They couldn't get enough about it. I mean, those three motion pictures were just so huge. And then that was the arrival of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were the pioneers, the ambassadors of demonology. And I contend that Ed and Lorraine Warren were to demonology what Sybil Leek from the UK was to witchcraft. I mean, they both sort of legitimized it. They made it popular. They defined what it was, and so they were important people in in the paranormal realm.
Yeah, I I'm so happy that you've just mentioned that because one of the books you've written is the Smurl Haunting, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here because when the Warrens got involved and we're going to go into a little bit more detail. A whole movie franchise was made because of this haunting. So how did the Smurl Haunting book come about?
Oh, you mean with my book?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, there were, I tell people that, excuse me, I think that there was something that channeled through me to write the book. I mean, some unseen forces. And I know that sounds a little contrived, it sounds a little dramatic, but I look at three things. West Pittston, Pennsylvania was very close to where I live in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. It was about maybe 35 minutes away. So when this was happening in the 1980s, I was driving up there, taking photographs, talking to the neighbors, and sort of immersing myself into some of this. I never spoke to the Schmerls because they were under attack by demons, by the paparazzi, and by the public that didn't believe them. They thought they were just out to make money. So I was there when Ed and Lorraine Warren announced that they were going to be doing a 15-city tour to promote the book The Haunted, which was about the Smurl haunting. It was written by Robert Curran. He was a friend of mine from the Sunday Independent newspaper that we both worked for. But in 1988, I met Ed and Lorraine in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. Hung out with them, took pictures, interviewed them, stayed in touch with them over the years until they died. So I was friends with Ed and Lorraine. She was an animal lover. Many times I would call Ed and you could hear the rooster in the background. She had a rooster called Einstein. So I knew them and I asked them about the Smurl haunting and about demonology and fighting these demons and all that. And then the third thing that sort of was the trifecta was Friday, July 11th, 2025. I talked my wife into going to Gettysburg to see Annabelle the doll. And there I ran into Dan Rivera, who was the chief handler for Annabelle. And Dan agreed to go and do an interview with me on Monday, July the 14th. And Dan died a day before. And here's a picture. I don't know if we could see this. not of Annabelle, but let me see if you could see.
Okay, yeah.
Right there. Okay, there's me and Dan Rivera. That's July 11th in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There's Annabelle in the middle, and you can see that Annabelle's in a wooden cage.
Yeah.
There's 3 crosses there. The wooden cage was blessed by holy water and holy oil. There was a copy of the Lord's Prayer in back. And this was to keep everybody safe from Annabelle. One thing that they said in the literature was that Father Bob would be there at all times to offer an extra level of protection. But when I was there, Father Bob was nowhere to be seen, and he was on holiday in South America. So we didn't have Father Bob there. But again, I was supposed to interview Dan Rivera on the 14th. He died on the 13th. And here's the question. The coroner said that he died of natural causes and that he had cardiac issues. And that's fine. That's the scientific explanation. Other people, like the psychic Vincent sisters, believe that it was the demonic energies of Annabelle that wore Dan down and eventually killed him. So that's the other possibility. And again, I don't know what happened, but there's a number of people that just felt that Annabelle never should have been taken around the countryside on that Devil's on the Run tour. Lorraine Warren wanted Annabelle and those artifacts to stay at the Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. And in 2023, the people that owned those artifacts, and that was Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law, Tony Spira, had the Devils on the Run tour where he took all those artifacts around to New Orleans, to the West Virginia Penitentiary, and then to Gettysburg, and that's where I saw them in Gettysburg. But again, Lorraine did not want that to happen. She wanted those artifacts to stay there in Connecticut.
What is your personal thoughts about Annabelle?
Yeah, I think there's something there. Again, is Annabelle infused with demonic energies? That's the story. That's what, the Warrens thought. Or could it be that Annabelle is the target of all of these human people? There are all these projections, all the people that believe Annabelle is evil, projecting that possibility, projecting those energies onto her. So that's something that we have to look at as well. But how do we do this? How do we experiment, and how do we replicate those experiments? We're not going to do that. And then what happened too? Annabelle and those artifacts have been sold or leased for $1 million to the stand-up comic and his friend. And I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I saw that advertised. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, for anybody, if we're talking about being responsible and being cautious around a doll that could be infused with demonic energies, then I don't know. It seems to me that it's all about the money. So they were able to go and Matt Rife is the stand-up comic who either leased or purchased the artifacts for $1 million. So there's $1 million there. But then even when I was in Gettysburg, the Gettysburg Connections, the newspaper, counted over those 3 days 1,260 people times $40 each. At all these places they went to with the Devils on the Road, it was well over $200,000 in the bank. And there's money to be made in this. And Lee, you were talking about the original Conjuring franchise. Conjuring, the 9-film Conjuring franchise was based on Ed and Lorraine Warren. To this date, those 9 motion pictures have brought in $2.7 billion with a B.
Yeah.
$2.7 billion. Of course, the last one, Conjuring Last Rites, was about the Smurl haunting. And I contend, if you want to be entertained, go see The Conjuring Last Rites. But if you want the real story, the true story, read my book, the Smurl haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town. And there's my picture of Ed and Lorraine. That was taken in 1988 in Jim Thorpe. So anyway, this book was personal to me because I lived part of it or parts of it. And, I feel, I mean, this, I don't know how this sounds, but I feel like almost like I was chosen to write the book. I mean, I was there, right time, right place, call it what you will, coincidence, fate, karma, whatever,
Yeah.
serendipity, synchronicity. There was something there very tangible that happened that led me down that path. So,
And it's interesting that you mentioned about Dan passing, because when it happened, like the internet went absolutely crazy saying it was Annabelle, it was Annabelle.
yeah.
Me having a medical background, it's like, okay, let's just wait to see what the medical doctors come back with. Yeah. And they said it was natural causes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless I've got the evidence, I'm going to agree with the professionals, because it was my job at the time. So you have to deal with what's black and white. You can't assume that somebody's got an ailment or this, that, and the other until it's proven. But I could not believe the arguments that I saw on social media. It was like it was either Team Annabelle or Team Dan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it was amazing at the amount of people that were arguing online. Well, it was Annabelle. No, Dan had got a medical problem. No, it was Annabelle that caught. And it's like nobody could win at that moment in time. It was crazy.
And I got caught up in some of that. I mean, some of those folks up there in Monroe were accusing me of exploiting Dan's death, celebrating Dan's death, making money over Dan's death. Come on. I mean, the only body making money was, the New England Society for Psychic Research taking Annabelle on the road. They're the ones who made a whole lot of money. So, but anyway, that's beside that. Well, it's not beside the point. It is the point. Money is being made through these artifacts, through these shows. It's called dark tourism, and a lot of people would rather venture into the dark side and peer into the dark side. It's just something that we do. It gives us a thrill, and Carl Jung was right when he talked about that, our shadow selves. So, that's the real purpose. But I mean, I didn't. I was attacked, but that happens. When you're sort of visible, when you have a commodity like a book, or where you have something to say. If you go against the grain, then you're going to be attacked. But right after his death, there were people that said, "Let's not say anything. Let's let his family grieve in peace," which is true. But I'm thinking, well, they're going to grieve in their own way, no matter what's happening out there in the old world, because this is a tragedy.
Correct.
But don't tell me not to talk about this, because they're grieving. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And that's, so that was part of it. But the death of Dan Rivera, and I have a chapter in the Smurl Haunting called The Death of Dan Rivera. And my publicist and myself and two others had some long discussions about that, whether or not we should actually call the chapter that. Was that inappropriate? Was it disrespectful or whatever? And we decided that, it was appropriate to do that because it fit into the context of the book.
That's it. And you're actually remembering him as well.
Yeah, and he was a great guy. I mean, I met him there in Gettysburg, and he was a former Methodist that converted to Catholicism. All those guys that were there at Gettysburg, with the New England Society of Psychic Research, were steeped in God. They were Christians. They believed that the power of Satan is great, but the power of God is greater. So that was pretty much their MO. They're fighting, their battle cry. And but Dan Rivera was a great guy. I mean, he had a lot of notoriety, being on a lot of the ghost shows, and a family man, a veteran. Just a wonderful guy, a great guy, and we got along well. And I liked him a lot. I thought he was great. And like I said, we agreed to do a phone interview on Monday the 14th. Unfortunately, he died in his Gettysburg bedroom on the 13th. He died the day before. So whatever, you want to make of that, go right ahead. But it's a tragedy. It's
It,
unfortunate.
it absolutely is, and he's one of those people that certain things would not have happened within the paranormal community if it wasn't for him.
I
So
think, yeah.
we have to remember him for that, for sure.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And again, he was good friends with Ed and Lorraine Warren. He helped construct that wooden cage with Ed. They used a glass from a church. I guess it was a deconsecrated church, and they put this together. But that's where Annabelle was, and I looked into her eyes. I mean, I didn't see anything demonic, but I just saw a Raggedy Ann doll. But I'll tell you, in Gettysburg, when I went to see her, it was a really very uh, dramatic ambiance with chimes, and it looked like dry ice and purple lights and everything. I mean, it was a really big production. And I mean, I'm glad I went, glad I met Dan and all that. But, this is part of our paranormal realm, the good things and things not so good, the controversies, the I'm pretty much entrenched with the Bigfoot community here in Pennsylvania, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of castigation between these Bigfoot researchers, and it gets pretty ugly. And I just divorced myself from that because I don't want to be any part of that drama. It's no good for the paranormal realm, and I think it just takes us down. I think that what we need to do is speak the King's English, do our research. Try to define the parameters of the paranormal. Hopefully to at some point walk hand in hand with the scientific community. Because we need each other. So that's my hope, and I think if anything, that's what I hope I can bring to the fore. Maybe like a little looking through the paranormal through an academic lens, if that's what I do.
Exactly, and I've been doing this podcast for like 16 months now, and one thing that I always emphasize with people is it does not matter who I have on this show. They've all got a story to tell, no matter what it is. And I cannot call any single one of them a liar because what they've experienced, just because I haven't, just because it didn't happen to me, I can't call them a liar. Mm-hmm. So I get as much information as I can, no matter what the subject is. And after each episode, I'm learning more and more. And at the end of the day, if people learn from it, you've achieved your objective.
I think so. I think what we want to do is we just want to discuss this and see what makes sense and what doesn't. I'll tell you, a good example would be flying saucers from other planets. The old-fashioned, old-school, the archaic viewpoint was that the Space Brothers would fly from their planet trillions of light years to Earth. And, looking at that, it would just take too much time, too much energy, too much anything. Einstein's theory of relativity would just blow holes through that. It just can't work. But Jacques Vallée said that, well, maybe, if you take this, like Einstein and Rosen said, with their bridge theory or wormhole theory, that if you take the space-time continuum and if you bend it in half and you punch a hole through it, you could go from A to B in a microsecond. That makes sense. That is a better theory. It's a theory, but it's a better theory than just going from, all those trillions of miles. So I believe that. I believe that Bigfoot and also flying saucers are interdimensional. There's some sort of a portal that they zigzag, they shapeshift through that portal from one dimension to ours. So that's something that makes sense. But again, we talk about that in demonology. We talk about spirits having a higher vibration and being able to pass over and come back, where ghosts don't have that vibration and they're stuck. They're earthbound. Some interesting parallels.
And I've spoken to many different people that have been Sasquatch investigators, Bigfoot, Dogman, and yeah, they come out with stuff that I've never even thought about before. Like interdimensional.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like it makes sense. And it's like, yeah, for people that go, oh, they don't exist because we haven't caught one. Yeah, there's probably a reason why we haven't caught one. They're probably a hell of a lot more intelligent than what we are, and they're going, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of humans coming again. Let's get out of here."
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
I,
like,
I yeah. I think they have. I think they have special abilities, and a lot of people have talked about that. So, they say they don't walk; they glide. They don't reflect light from their eyes, but they emit light. They have the rapid transport or by location. You see them there, then they're there. So all kinds of just like really bizarre things. But the whole thing about Bigfoot is pretty amazing, and I mean, I love talking about that, and
and you love writing about it, the lost tribes of Bigfoot.
yes, exactly, yes, and I really enjoy being a paranormal author because I just think that I'm almost like a little kid in a sandbox. Kids are curious. Little kids learn how to play the piano or, learn another language because they have all these brand new synapses. And I think that even, as we get older, I think we can still keep it going, through curiosity and interest. And I think that's the driving force. If you're curious and interested, then you go and you look at these things and you try to learn. And, I think, if anything, that's my ability, that I just, I have that fascination for these unknown realms of the paranormal, and and that's why I research and write. But I mean, it's just wonderful to be able to go and come up with these ideas, and So anyway, I'm a happy camper. They say that the person that finds their joy, is I mean that that's all you need in life, So
That's it. And when you're sat in the sun in Florida, you've got your cocktail or whatever on your table, and you're writing, sun's beating down, no snow. What more
yeah, I
could
know.
you ask for?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I will write the book and do the research down in Florida, and then come back here to Pennsylvania and fine tune it, make it artsy, strip away the superfluous stuff, adjectives and adverbs. You don't need to kill the reader with extra words. You don't need to do that. Be respectful to the reader. But I think that some of my work is part scientific and part poetry. I mean, I love writing, and sometimes not a whole lot, but sometimes I get a little bit artsy just to describe, some of these things that are out there. So, and that's all fine. No, we all have our niche, and
Exactly.
yeah. So, and people that read my books, a lot of them like what they read. So, yeah, that's the best compliment I could get.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, let's go back to the Bigfoot just for a second. I was talking to a guy last week, and I released his episode last week, and he showed me a 15-inch footprint cast, and he goes, "Well, yeah, some people say it's fake." He goes, "Yeah, some people say it's a double step, of a normal animal, but when you can definitively see the individual digits of that foot, and it's like I say, 15 to 16 inches, and you know damn well it's not a double step."
Mhm.
Like, that's when the mind starts wondering to what actually is this. I know for a fact it's not some, Joe Bloggs with a big wooden
Mhm.
footprint stamping down through the forest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we may never know what they are, but
Yeah.
as each investigation goes on, and more people write your books, and come out with the evidence, the more information we get, and then one day we may get definitive, like,
Right.
evidence.
Yeah, I think when you look at Bigfoot evidence, I think that two things. One, the Patterson Gimlin film of 1967, and I don't care what they're saying currently about that. I believe that it's accurate. It's the Holy Grail. The other thing are the foot casts, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who passed away in 2025. I had a chance to meet him down in Ocala at the Bigfoot Expo a couple years ago, and he has had one of the world's largest collections of these foot casts, and it's amazing how big they are. You know, bigger than any bear. You know, the stride bigger than anything that we know. I mean, just pretty impressive stuff. Now, again, those are the two things that we have: the Patterson Gimlin film and the foot cast. You know, that's the best pieces of evidence that we have. And Dr. Meldrum, what he did was he was able to go and speak as a scientist and bring cryptozoology a little bit closer to the high table. You know, so he did a lot of good for us. And I don't know if there's anybody with his credentials that's going to be able to step into his shoes, because he was legendary. He was just a great guy and just so easy to get along with, so accessible, and man, what a great guy, you know. So he's from Idaho, you know.
Yeah, and one of the things I find interesting about the Patterson Gimlin is, this was in the mid-60s. The only other recognizable creatures that we had at that time was Planet of the Apes with Charles Heston, and it's sort of like, you could see the blacks of the eyes in the so it's like, yes, a lot of people think that, like you said, that is the best evidence what we have. But I did see a documentary recently where they were able to enhance the video, and they could say, oh this is where the muscle structure is, and the chest structure and all the muscles, and if it was a man in a suit, the head and the hair wouldn't move the way it is moving. It would be completely different. And the fact that they actually completely debunked the people that said it was fake by going, the way that the foot steps down, and absolutely broke it down into like proper science. I absolutely was in awe of that documentary, because it proved that what you're seeing is real.
Right, yeah. And I think further proof came in 1974, I think it was. In 1972, Dr. John Napier from the Smithsonian, he was a guy from the UK. He had a chance to go and take a look at this Patterson Gimlin film, and he thought it was fake, because he thought that it cobbled together two elements: the upper body of an ape and the bottom of a hominid. And that was in 1972. In 1974, in Ethiopia, they discovered Lucy, Australopithecus, man's oldest ancestor. Lucy was about, I think, 3.5, 4 feet tall. But Lucy had arms like an ape and legs like a hominid. And when John Napier saw that, he said, wait a second, I was wrong about the Patterson Gimlin film. I think it's accurate based on this thing. Again, here was an example of science coming full circle, of the scientific community giving us proof, and again, it's a long process finding these relics and these fossils and everything else. But little by little, I think we're solving the puzzle. But the Patterson Gimlin film, only 58 seconds. It was a female. You could see the breast. It just looked, and it acted as all Bigfoot looks. They look curious and then they run away. They don't want to be with us. In every case, there's only 2 cases I know of that where Bigfoot was actually aggressive. But most of the time, they're just very reclusive, and they don't want any part of us. They just go away.
Yeah, and the wife and I watch quite a few of these TV shows, and we have like an in-joke where it's like, oh, there's something in the woods. Quick, turn your camera to blurry so you can't take a decent picture. And it's like, in this day and age, if it's real, you're going to have some really good evidence. But everything is grainy, blurry, and you can't tell what it is.
Yeah. And they keep on raising the bar. The reason these pictures don't come out is because Bigfoot has this ability, this psychic ability, to make them blurred. So I mean, we can't win. I mean, we can't
No,
win.
exactly.
I'm trying to win.
Yeah. So, Max, we are unfortunately coming to an end, but before we do, out of all the books that you've written, which one is your favorite?
Yeah, I think it has to be Co-Region Hoodoo. Co-Region Hoodoo takes a look at some of the supernatural, paranormal things in northeastern Pennsylvania and western Pennsylvania, which are pretty significant. Pennsylvania is supposed to rank number 3 in Bigfoot sightings after California and Washington State. So there's a lot of weirdness there, and Co-Region Hoodoo is my bestseller, gets the most reviews on Amazon, just has a whole lot of stuff there. It's just, if you're looking for a book that's representative of me and what I do, I think Co-Region Hoodoo would be the one. So, and I would hope that your listeners, if they are interested in any of my books, I have a website. It's www.maximfurek.com, MAXIMFUREK. And if you would be so kind as to purchase a book or two, please leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads. That's the holy grail that us authors need. We need those reviews. I can't say it enough. So, but Lee, thank you so much for allowing me, for the invite. This has been delightful, and you do a great job with the interviews and with the questions. So thank you so much.
And thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, when you've got some more books under your belt, we'll have you back on and we'll talk about those too.
Sounds good. Okay, very good. Okay. Thank you so much, and continued success with your program.
You too, my friend. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.